Good morning, boys and girls. Happy reading day. So today in the schedule, we're back to day 1. So we will be doing our reading lesson for today. If you notice, what I have up is our character tree anchor chart for our book club books. We are going to continue to look at our character and analyze our character based upon their actions and dialogue to determine their character trait. So I'll review what we did last week, and you're pretty much going to be doing the same thing this week, just with a new section of your book. Okay, so if you remember, a character trait are characteristics that can be inferred based upon actions and dialogue over the course of the text, and is based upon the character's personality, values, and beliefs. Whoop. If you look over here, remember that the way a character feels is not a character trait. It's important to notice the way that they're feeling. I'm not saying that that's not important, because that is important, but it's not a character trait. Remember to look at the character's actions and dialogue to determine character trait. So yes, last week we talked about Henry's Freedom Box, which we read in class already. This page was from last week as well, where Henry didn't want to lie. Okay, and if you remember, we filled this out. My character was Henry. I put an X underneath honest because he was honest, and I have my evidence from the text that explains why I thought Henry was honest. Okay. In the text, Henry did not want to say thank you to his master because he didn't want to lie. This explains and tells us that Henry was honest. Now today I'm going to read this page, which you already have read, and we already figured out his character traits, so I'm just going to review it for you to help you with your assignment today. His friend James came into the factory. He whispered to Henry, "Your wife and children were just sold at the slave market." "No," cried Henry. Henry couldn't move. He couldn't think. He couldn't work. "Twist that tobacco." The boss poked Henry. Henry twisted tobacco leaves. His heart twisted in his chest. So I want you to think for a minute. How would we describe Henry now? I'll read it one more time. His friend James came into the factory. He whispered to Henry, "Your wife and children were just sold at the slave market." "No," cried Henry. Henry couldn't move. He couldn't think. He couldn't work. "Twist that tobacco." The boss poked Henry. Henry twisted tobacco leaves. His heart twisted in his chest. Now, if we look at our character trait chart, how would you now describe Henry? Now, with this, there could be more than one answer. Okay, so I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller so I can hopefully type in it. So I'm gonna type kind of just do it like this. All right, so how would we describe Henry from that section only? I would describe him as hardworking. I would describe him as brave. And we could even say that he was loyal. Oh my goodness. Okay. So any one of those would be okay. Okay, now I need to explain why I chose these traits and what in the story made me think that. In the text, Henry realized that his family was sold. Henry continued to work even though he was upset. This shows that Henry was hardworking. I want to also just maybe add a little bit more. So now I talked about hardworking. I want to add why I thought he was brave. He was also brave because he continued his work even though he was upset. This also shows that Henry was loyal to his master because he kept working. Okay, so this would be a way to answer this page. Okay, so you notice I did choose 3. I could have only chosen 1. As long as you have evidence that supports and explains your character trait. Okay. And if you notice, I use sentence starters such as in the text, which we have practiced a lot this year. You should be able to do that as well. And you want to also, we talk a lot about explaining that evidence. So here's my evidence from the text. So my evidence in the text is, it says, in the text, Henry realized that his family was sold. Henry continued to work even though he was upset. So if you see this, I'm just going to highlight it for a second, if I can. Okay, that is the information from the text. Now, what I did here, this shows that Henry was hardworking. I explained my evidence and kind of connected it back to my character trait. Okay, so you want to be doing that when you respond in your book club packet. Okay, I'll kind of explain it again. So the highlighted text in green tells us what happened in the story. Okay, the highlighted text in yellow kind of explains that evidence. Okay, so remember with that text evidence, we want to have that text evidence, but then we also want to explain how that helped you. Okay, so and bring it back to the original task. So original task was to complete to pick a character trait. So I explained that this shows that Henry was hardworking. Okay, so if you think about races, it's that E part of races. So you have your evidence, and then you want to explain that evidence and why you kind of chose that. Okay. So I want you to really focus on that. So when you guys are doing your work, and I do go through and check some of your book club packets, I will be looking to make sure that you have your evidence and that you're able to kind of explain your evidence. And like I said, right here, it's just a simple explanation. So this shows that Henry was hardworking. Okay, and I explained what this evidence from the text means and why it's important. Okay, and I connected it back to our character trait. So like I said, when I'm checking through, I really do want to see that. I want to see your evidence, and then I want to see that sentence of explaining that evidence. Okay, so what you guys will do today, you will watch this lesson, which I'll post it down here, and then you're going to read section 2. So if you notice down here what section 2 is, look at your page numbers. Like I said, if you need to number the bottom of your pages, like lightly, you are able to do that. They should be numbered, but sometimes some of the books don't get numbered. And then it also gives you what it starts with and ends with if the numbers aren't on there to help you. So you'll do that. And then what you're going to do too is, I believe your book club packets, now that you already started them from last week, should be in your Google Drive. Okay, so I have click on your waffle. I talked about that a lot in class, that little waffle at the top, and go into your Google Drive to find your book club packet you worked on last week. Okay, so for example, here's the waffle, and then go to your Google Drive. And hopefully it should be in there. Okay, everything you do gets saved into this Google Drive. This Google Drive will be your best friend. It's my best friend. It has all of my work saved, and I can find anything in there. Okay. All right. I think that's all. I put complete the second character trait page of your book club packet after you read the second section. Read on Raz Kids or independent books for 20 minutes. I know a lot of people have been asking how does Miss Rhodes know that you read on Raz Kids? I do go on my account in Raz Kids and I can check check the amount of time that you've been on, the questions you've been answering. So remember, I will be going on there to check that. You don't need to submit anything or turn anything in. I will go on and, make sure that you have completed it for the day. All right. You guys also have the math choice board. When you have these choice boards, boys and girls, please do not hit turn in. When you hit turn in, I have to send it back to you because then you lose it. So some of you, I remember, said, oh no, my choice board disappeared. That's because you hit turn it in. So don't hit turn it in. I can see, I go on every day and I check and I can see, what you have written on that choice board for the day. Okay, so don't hit turn it in. And then you have your art lesson. Okay, so Google Hangout, we'll talk about that. I will add a time here and let you guys know later. All right. Well, happy reading.